this is going to be the last time we talk about this. Thank God. Hey there, I'm Mo. I am a extension stylist and studio suite owner who dabbles in content creation from time to time. And today I wanted to wrap up in a neat little bow the Hair by Chrissy situation. And I pretty much just want to have like a raw conversation of big takeaways from the entire situation. I'll do a little brief update on where we are with everything. And then I just kind of want to add my 2 cents as to what I think big picture that stylists and clients can take away from this huge debacle. If you missed my last one, you can pause this video, click here, watch that, then come back for part 2 here. But the TLDR on the situation is that this girl, not famous 808, still don't know what her real name is. It is what it is. She had booked an appointment at Habit Salon, believing her appointment to be with Chrissy, Hair by Chrissy, the owner of Habit Salon. Went to her appointment, proceeded to have a not so great experience, paid a decent chunk of money for her hair, only to be frustrated in hindsight that the experience didn't equate what she paid for. She took to TikTok, shared a story about her experience, and as I had explained in my first video, I think a big takeaway from the masses on this situation was, why would you charge that much for hair? And at the end of the day, I'm going to stand 10 toes when I say that I don't believe that that was what the issue was. She had even said it's not about the money. It is a lot of money. Obviously, nobody's discrediting that it's not. Like, that's a lot of money to spend on your hair. But her issue overall was her experience didn't meet that $4,000 price tag. And I said that that was fair. And from the sounds of it, it didn't equate that. So the internet got into this discourse about how she should have felt about the situation. Then real time as that was happening, a mini movement of almost like surviving Hair by Chrissy stories came up of people saying how much they had spent on a haircut, they had spent on highlights, they had spent on whatever, on getting a service from Chrissy and what their experience had been. And again, they were like, $600 haircut, $400 whatever. Yeah, it just kind of turned into like this bigger conversation about just almost attacking Chrissy in a way. And normally I would say I feel bad, but the way Chrissy handled the situation was also like extremely inappropriate. Chrissy took to her Instagram stories to make posts kind of mocking the situation, mocking what Not Famous's experience had been. She put up AI images of merch that she was putting on pre-sale. Yeah, it just turned into a really gross mess of a situation. And like I said, in most situations, I would at least feel for her as a stylist. I understand people not liking your work, but it didn't even come down to that. Initially, it was just that the experience wasn't great, and for how much money she paid, she didn't think that it was worth it. And she was just telling other people, like, hey, just so you know, you're going to spend a lot of money and honestly probably get treated like shit. So buyer beware. So yeah, that's the TLDR on the entire situation and where I'd left it last time. I don't believe by the time I wrapped up my last video, Chrissy had said anything else. To this day, I don't really think she said anything else. She just did like weird little like shady things, like changed her profile picture to a picture of her sticking her tongue out and foiling. And she made multiple pieces of content with this creator, again, almost mocking the situation of like, oh, she's so unhappy, but like, look at this work that I did. And then the merch. But I don't think since then she's really said anything. She's just been business as usual. And Not Famous has went and seen another stylist to have her color redone, new extensions put in, and she seems all happy. Since the situation, I would say it seems like her internet career is really taking off. I say that lightly. She's like a micro influencer now in her own right. It's fine. Go off, girl, get your bag. Yeah, I would say that like overall, no harm, no foul on either end in this situation. I think it would have been big for Chrissy to just make a public apology, or at the bare minimum, private apology to Not Famous directly. At the end of the day, I'm sorry, like, you are a 40-plus-year-old woman. You should not try to pick fights on the internet with 20-year-olds. Like, grow up. Got kind of heated about that in the last one, but it is what it is. I'm happy Not Famous is happy with her hair. She's living her best life. Kudos. Chrissy's still getting her bag. That's great. Kudos. Glad everyone's happy and thriving. Amazing. So then why am I here right now? What are we talking about then if there's really nothing else to add to the situation? I would like to have a very raw, real, open conversation about key takeaways that me as a stylist can apply to the situation. I think other stylists could apply to the situation, but then also advice for clients, future clients of mine, future clients of other stylists, anybody who books services to get their hair done. I would like this video to be kind of a reference point for everybody to do a little pause before situations get out of hand. So what do I mean by this? I would say there were like 3 big takeaways of the situation. One was how the industry responded, one was how consumers responded, and one was how the individuals involved themselves responded. I've already touched on that, so I'm not going to harp on that issue anymore. I have 2 videos now about it, so check that out. Come back here, keep watching. The industry conversation in regard to this. I was very disturbed by multiple tiers to this. The stylist who did fix Not Famous's hair, like, kudos. I'm so happy you were able to connect with her. You decided to offer her a complimentary service to correct hair. What I didn't like, and I didn't watch the live video, so like, I mean, I know things were done in like tongue-in-cheek, very playful manners, but what I did not like was the continued, I don't even want to call it attacks, but just like shady TikToks towards another stylist where you're scrutinizing their work, downplaying their credentials, and putting yourself up on like a pedestal for what? So if you had missed any of this, Not Famous ended up getting her hair corrected by a stylist in Texas named Rachel. Rachel had reached out to her offering to correct the experience that she had had with Chrissy and to correct her color. Not Famous flies out there, gets her extensions fixed, gets her color corrected, and says she had like a much better experience. Rachel is a sweetheart. She looks forward to working with her. I'm not sure if they're gonna like continue like client stylist relationship or if it was just for content and it is what it is. Where I have an issue is you can give constructive criticism on another stylist's work, or at least explain the why without shitting on another stylist. Like, I've had situations in my own chair where I've had to be like, oh, I don't really see why this was done like this. Here's why I would do it differently. And I explain that client specific concern that I would be addressing doing it this way. And I would say, here's why I wouldn't have approached it the way that it's currently done. I felt like there was just like slight jabs where Rachel was doing TikTok trends with Not Famous that she's kind of known for, like dances to songs and stuff. I'll put like a couple examples here, but she did it with her, and you know, it was shade towards a fellow stylist, which is really shitty. I don't care that this stylist is honestly kind of unethical and that's its own conversation, but that doesn't then mean I'm going to go online and like drag the stylist work and their skill set and their business. And I don't know, it rubbed me the wrong way. The online discussion after the situation within the industry that was so alarming to me was the amount of stylists that were posting content, whether it was a reel, a carousel, whatever, that was hair I did that didn't cost $4,000. I say it all the time. There is a stylist for everybody. There is a salon, a stylist, a whatever that's in your price point, regardless of what your budget is. And it's up to you as the customer to find the person that fits within your budget. It is not the practitioner's responsibility to fit within your budget. Obviously, not everybody is spending $4,000 on their hair. That's like a given. But where I get annoyed by a trend like that is that you don't need to brag about having cheap services to belittle somebody who's charging more. It's not up to each individual person to determine what is considered a fair pay for somebody's career. I'm sorry, point blank. It's just weird to me to be bragging about like,
oh, I only charged $4 for this full head of highlights. Come see me.
Okay, well, like, cool. Like, we all have to start somewhere. And obviously, like, there's so many factors that go into why a service is priced the way it's priced. But like, you shouldn't brag about having a low price point just to discredit somebody who has a higher price point. There's some beautiful work that can be done for low prices, and there's some atrocious work that I've seen done for really high tickets. That's really not the point. Just this trend is really like discrediting a lot of hard work that has gone into legitimizing the beauty industry and professions within the beauty industry over the last 6 to 10 years. So yeah, I think this was not the proper response because it just reinforces this terrible notion that hairstylists shouldn't be allowed to make a livable wage. And that's not just me being dramatic. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average salary for hairstylists is $31,350, with the median salary being $26,090. So that puts the majority of stylists barely above the poverty line, let alone being able to live paycheck to paycheck. If you're cool with charging $10 for a haircut, just know that you're always going to be working harder than the person charging $60. That's just how the math works. The hair and beauty industry have like always operated as gig work. I don't know why there was this like unspoken rule when it started that they weren't going to operate as legitimate businesses. And as education towards operating a business has gotten better, technical education has gotten better, and the bar has been risen for the first time in what seems like ever, we are seeing salons and stylists charge in a way that makes sense to operate profitable businesses, as well as paying staff appropriately and legally and above board, which for years was just simply not happening. I will link below some incredible educators and articles that explain this whole concept a lot more eloquently than I am. I'll just leave that thought there for right now. The next thing that I really want to note that I think a lot of commentary channels missed the mark on with this entire situation was that it was never about the price. You keep hearing me say this. It wasn't about the price. It never was about the price. The price is the price. I said it in my last video and I will say it again today. While you might not pay $4,000 for highlights and hair extension install, there still are people who will pay that price. And they do every single day. And that was never the point. Not Famous herself even said in her initial video, she knew it was going to be pricey to get her hair done from Chrissy from Habit Salon. The biggest issue overall in all of this came down to client experience and communication, day of service. From the beginning, at least from the screenshots that Not Famous shared, it was unclear who she was even working with to begin with. When I looked at the website, you can't book an appointment with Chrissy. So even if you were to just text the number that's on all of the Habit pages, any of the stylists there, Chrissy's page, the Habit Salon page, if you are to get a hold of that phone number on there, that doesn't guarantee you're getting an appointment with Chrissy, but that should be disclosed. I've seen situations come up in other people's stories of like a document that's like, oh, when you pay your deposit, it also says like Chrissy and her team or Chrissy da 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 da. But regardless, that shouldn't be behind the paywall like, oh, once you pay a deposit, I know this information. It should be pretty clear up front. Hey, at this point in time, Chrissy doesn't really take clients. It's to her discretion if she wants to work with you or not. If she decides to work with you, that's for trade, that's for this, that's for that. Cool. That should be disclosed ahead of time. You should know you're booking an appointment with before the appointment's booked. You should also have a clear understanding of what your service entails when you're coming to the chair. I also think it was super shady of them to, in the text conversation we saw, for lack of a better term, we'll say it was the text consultation. In that, we even saw they said, oh, for an install, it's this. If you are just doing maintenance, it's this. Cool. Perfect. Where they went wrong is she kind of got played with her extensions. So she had said, oh, I'm wearing extensions. I'm looking for maintenance and color. And then they gave her one quote. She gets their day of, and they said, oh, if the hair is salvageable, we'll just charge you for maintenance and color. But if we deem it not good, you'll have to get hair and it's going to be this price. My immediate red flag was that they have an in-house hairline, and obviously they're going to try to sell you their hairline, not whatever you have. Not Famous did bring an open package of hair to the salon, and to that I say shame on them, because they opened it knowing that she cannot return the hair. As it is, sealed packages are hard enough to do an exchange or a return for with most hairlines, but usually as long as it's sealed, you can more than likely get a refund or return it or exchange it. By opening that package, it's immediately null. So now she has hair that she can't use, that they said is shit, and that she can't even return. So that was shady. If you prefer to use a house brand as a stylist, you should disclose that during the consultation and be like, I understand you're coming in already wearing extensions. Please understand that we only like to work with this specific hair. The reason is we can guarantee the longevity of the hair. We can guarantee this, that, whatever. Da, da, da. There's so many reasons why stylists will be particular about one brand versus another. However, that needs to be disclosed. And I think the lack of disclosure is kind of where they fell short in that aspect. So then, yeah, building on top of the fact that it was unclear what the service entailed, down to the aftercare, that, again, looking at the receipt and what was quoted initially prior in the consultation, I would guess that the products that she felt like she was just forced to buy were technically part of the service, but the way it was packaged was not great and the presentation was not great. The communication, the service clarity, and the client experience are going to be the three most important factors when it comes to a service, from initial communication to when they leave the salon and in between. I also think coming off of this situation where you're seeing the end of like the hype salons, and what I mean by that is the hairstylists and salons that have blown up on TikTok, social media, whatever, where the owner is essentially an influencer in and of themselves. I see that kind of taking more and more of a downward trajectory as we see a growing distaste for certain types of influencers as people become more and more vocal online about their experiences in salons. I think your local community, your Google reviews, all of these kind of things are going to hold a lot more weight than when you're a showy social media salon that flies clients out and 90% of your clientele is exchanging content for their service instead of being paying customers. I think that's kind of a faulty model and it's going to continue to have shortcomings. That being said, on the flip side of it, I think we need to, and this kind of goes back to the whole communication thing, but I think we need to reopen the door and the line of communication between stylist and client where you are comfortable enough to come to your stylist when you are upset about the service, if there was something said during your service, if you maybe felt something was off during your service, if your result wasn't what you were expecting. There should be an open line of communication and an established line of trust with your stylist that you can communicate that to them directly before taking it to the internet. And this isn't just this situation specifically, it's just time and time again I keep seeing these situations. I really think that you should take it up with your stylist. If your stylist isn't the owner and they're not being proactive, take it up with the owner of the salon that you go to. If they're still not being proactive, then take it to whatever the next escalated tier is. I definitely think the private conversation needs to be had before you take it to social media. It's just making everybody look like assholes and it's just really infuriating. It's the difference between having a one-off bad experience and completely trying to tarnish someone's reputation and career because you're not happy. And I've seen so many different examples of that over the last year, and as a stylist, it's just really disheartening because it makes it hard to want to keep doing my job. None of the stuff's ever happened directly to me, but when it's like that's the sentiment you keep seeing over and over and over again about your job, it makes it very disheartening and makes you just really not want to show up. So yeah, I think there needs to be a two-way conversation prior to hopping to the internet to solve things, but that's wishful thinking. Unfortunately, in the day and age that we live in, I think reacting on social media is the easiest solution to get your way, unfortunately, and it is what it is. But I just really disagree with it, and I think it's going to continue to separate practitioners and their clients even further. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that the customer service aspect of service-based industry needs to be brought back. We need to be having open conversations with each other, not jumping to the internet to bash each other point blank. So yeah, now that I've seen this play out, I really think moving forward, the client experience is going to matter so much more now than it ever has. Between the social media distrust of stylists, especially if you are a higher ticket stylist, you really do unfortunately have to like work to prove that there's a reason to pay you what you're charging. And that's not just doing good hair. Like that's the bare minimum bar in the ground. Bar in hell expectation is that you can do good hair. I would hope so if you're charging that much, but it's all the other factors. The client communication before they even come in, their onboarding experience as a new client, their experience when they walk through the door, the experience when they leave your chair. Do you follow up with them? So many contributing factors moving forward that I think are really going to continue to separate the industry, but also the expectation, I think, from clients. I think if we want to be out here charging these high ticket prices, and if it's justified to be charging a high ticket price, you need to also have the full experience encompassed in that price point to make it feel worth it. Because we really have hit a point where people are a lot more choosy about how they spend their money, and if they leave thinking it wasn't worth it, then that's going to be your detriment. So now that the dust is settling, what do you think? I'm seriously surprised at how big this story got, and honestly I was even more surprised to find out about the previous scandal from Chrissy before this situation even had happened. I had no clue about 2020. As a working budding hairstylist and business owner, I genuinely hate when stuff like this happens because it discredits the entire industry, because it really diminishes the work and validity that we as an industry have spent the last 5 to 8 years building. Thank you so much for joining me today. As always, share your comments down below. Let's have a respectful conversation about this topic. If you have something you want to say about the situation, I'd rather you leave it here and we talk about it than addressing anybody who was mentioned in this video or anyone who you know of who was mentioned in this situation. Like, that's just mean, and we don't need to add more fuel to the fire. Definitely will love to chat more and hang out down in the comments and hear other perspectives on the situation. I feel like I can be a lot biased because I do work in this industry and I care a lot about how it's perceived and what happens, but I like to hear other people's point of view on it. Subscribe so you don't miss future uploads, and I will see you next week.